Next guest speaker is Matt Kushi. Matt is the owner and operator of Kushi Farm and the North Hadley Chili Pepper Company. He began in 2011 on a farm that actually was started by his great-grandfather. A couple of things about Matt, why I thought Matt would be a good guest speaker for this evening. Matt has a full-time job at the Eisenberg School of Business. So I don't want to say farming's part-time, because probably if you add up all your hours, Matt, you're probably putting 40 hours a week on your farm during the season. But also the fact that Matt has gone value added with his chili peppers and making some different things there. So Matt, if you're on, I'm going to turn it over to you, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Tom. Everyone can hear me, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I have a PowerPoint slide deck that I can share that just kind of tells my story a little bit. Okay. So I've called my presentation Marketing Positioning for Success. And Skip, I really enjoyed your presentation because it hits on a lot of the points that I've discovered as a new and up-and-coming farmer, and one who does work full-time off the farm. And a lot of the strategies that you've mentioned, relationships, communication, telling a story, adding value to your product, that's really the story of Kushi Farm, the North Hadley Chili Pepper Company. So just a little about myself. I'm a 2010 undergrad sport management graduate from UMass, Eisenberg School of Management. Graduated into the Great Recession, couldn't find a job. So I started to turn towards my family history. My great-grandfather was a farmer, and I didn't really have any land or experience in farming, but I knew how to grow vegetables. So I started to grow a few vegetables on the side in the family garden. And Skip, like you said, starting with a rototiller and probably making $25 a year. That's pretty much how I started, in a 20 by 20 plot in the family garden. But as time has gone on, I've built my career. I've also made time to build the business, learned about what worked, what doesn't work. And in that whole process, I've really learned the importance of marketing in your business plan. And that's really kind of what my story will be about here in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes or so. So this is my logo. And what you see here is pretty much how the farm started. You see a little garden there below my logo. That was pretty much the farm when it started. I had to figure out how to turn a little 20 by 20 patch into something that people could believe in, something that people would want, something that people could see value in. I grew a few things of squash, some peppers. I started growing hot peppers because they looked interesting, and that is the truth. But I had to figure out how to basically sustain and be able to turn a profit based on the small beginnings that I did have. So this is just a little bit about the operation. In order to start figuring out how to make a profit, I turned to the past. I knew my great-grandfather was a pretty successful asparagus and tobacco farmer, and he obviously understood business. So I kind of turned to my family history and studied the story. And from that story, I started to develop my own vision of what the farm would look like, what I was hoping to achieve, and what I hoped to grow and eventually sell and market. So what is that history? The original Kushi Farm was started by Joseph Kushi and Slomia Weiner, who came to Hadley in 1903 from Poland. They were farmers. and that's what they decided to build their American dream on, farming. I still live on the same land that they settled on and farmed on. That's part of my story, part of my legacy. And I'm sharing this with you because you'll see in a few slides the importance of that history to my marketing plan. So what do I grow? I grow pumpkins, winter squash, but my main crop is hot peppers. It's a niche market, so I have to market it as such. So I grow jalapeno peppers, hot red cherry peppers, habaneros, but I grow them for a reason. I have a market and a target audience that I'm looking at. I mainly sell wholesale at this point due to the fact that I do work full time at the University of Massachusetts. But I've had conversations with the people that I sell to, the distributors that I sell to. I've asked questions of them. Who are they selling to? What are their markets? They sell to regional supermarkets, local markets, and what they look for are for people who are looking for a food experience, people looking to add some flavor to dishes, people looking for ethnic diversity in their food, trying to make a dish special as it was back home if they're from somewhere else. So culturally significant food. So that's how I kind of market my hot peppers. I'm creating an experience. And so that's the journey I've kind of taken with hot peppers. Now, the marketing schema might be a little bit different for, say, my winter squash or my pumpkins. I still focus on the experience aspect, but it's not as much a niche market. It's kind of more mainstream. So going back to my hot peppers, and Skip, this is where I perfectly blend into your conversation. I started to think of how do I expand that market for that niche market of hot peppers? How do I expand on creating an experience for people, something that resonates with people? The answer is value-added products. When you look at a company like Smucker's or something, you look at strawberries, apples, apricots, any kind of fruit or vegetable. Well, you can have that in its raw form when it's in season. Its shelf life might not always be the longest. How do you sustain that? How do you make more money off of that? And how do you add value to people's lives? Value-added products. So what I have done is I've taken the hot peppers that I grow on the farm and I convert it into hot pepper jelly. Now, going back to the question of regulations and formalized recipes, hot pepper jelly is a regulated product overseen by the FDA. I have had to go through Cornell, get the acidity tested, University of Maine, to get bricks testing, things like that, just to make sure that it's a shelf-stable product. It has been a process and it can take a while, but in the end, I believe it's worth it. My value-added product line, the hot pepper jelly, through my marketing and just through the quality of the product, it's my biggest profit-making item that I have. And I can weave a story around it of I am adding value to others' lives through a food-related product. I'm adding to their experience. That rack of ribs you have in the freezer, I can add some flavor to it through the jelly. If you want a little spice on your scrambled eggs in the morning or your toast, or if you want some savory hors d'oeuvres, this jelly can add value to it. So in the grand scheme of things, the way I look at marketing is it's part of a plan. It's part of a framework. So when you're creating a business, an entity, you have a business plan. You've got to have a mission statement. You've got to know your resources. You got to know how to keep your finances in order, how to keep your operational processes in order. And you've got to know your markets. You've got to know how to get people to buy your products and who's going to buy your products. Who are you talking to? So in terms of looking at a business plan, marketing is one of the key components to that. It's where you partially answer that question of what value is added. Marketing is where you're defining the value for others so that they use your product. As we referred to earlier in the presentation, there's the marketing mix. You look at all these things. Product. You want to have a good quality product at a price that people are willing to pay. You also need to be able to promote it, get people to buy your product at the right place, whether that be a farmer's market, a wholesale website, an e-commerce website, whatever your specialty is. To any new farmers out there, I would say, look at your specialties, look at your fortes, what you're good at, and run with it. Own it and make it your own. For me, wholesale works for me for raw products, but retail works for me for the jelly. Why? It all depends on who I'm talking to, who I'm building relationships with. So how do I build those relationships? It's individualized to each area that I'm looking at. So I market myself as local and homegrown. Here in the Pioneer Valley, we have we really emphasize the local and homegrown aspect. That's what the demand is. That's what consumers are looking for, that fresh, personal touch. This whole presentation, what have I been doing? I've been telling you a story. I'm a storyteller, for better or for worse. So what my specialty is in marketing is I'm telling you my story, a story that emphasizes local and homegrown, a story that allows you to personally connect with me and my product and allows you to get invited into that world where you can see where I believe that quality exists. If you're a storyteller, use that. Use that as part of your marketing plan. It will help you build relationships. It can be the vessel that allows you to communicate with people. So really, that's the story of Kushi Farm, the North Hadley Chili Pepper Company, and from someone who works full-time at UMass and also runs a farm. And as you say, Tom, I don't know if part-time's quite the right word. I always tell people I'm either crazy or brilliant. Most people get out of work at 5 o'clock and go home and rest and relax. Farming season, I get out of work. I take off my dress shirt and suit coat, throw on my boots and t-shirt and go out in a field. But that's what works for me. And I try to convey that story to others so that they can say, this product is made by someone who's hardworking. I know their story. It's good quality. So another way that I market this is I offer quality products presented to those who value quality food and experiences told through a meaningful story. I do that a lot through word of mouth. I also use social media, the internet. In this modern day and age, that is one of your biggest tools you can use. So on the right in this picture, you have my Facebook page. On the left, you have my website. It gives infinite 24/7 access to anyone who's looking to see what the story of this organization is and to potentially buy into the story and product that we offer. So that's kind of my story. And I can be reached at my email here, and I'm open to questions that anyone might have.
Matt, I'll start with one question. Where do you make your jelly? Do you make it at home? And I guess as a follow-up, how did you start? In other words, okay, where did you get your recipe? Was it trial and error? Did you start with something or?
Yeah, certainly. So I make my jelly pretty much at home. I have a licensed residential kitchen that I cook out of. And basically the recipe was trial and error. I found a general recipe from like a cookbook I had used. A local business had encouraged me to make my own jelly when I was first growing peppers. I'd gone to them, seen that they had hot pepper jelly, and I said, "Do you need extra peppers for your jelly?" The owner said, "We co-pack," which means you take your recipe, give it to someone else, another business, and they make it for you. Well, I saw that I could add value to a product by having it be homegrown, homemade, as Steve Jobs would say, end-to-end integration. The process starts with me and ends with me. And that's really the philosophy that I follow to this day. I grow the peppers, I make the product, it starts and ends with me. And it really was trial and error. I tried a few different peppers at first. Some were way too hot. I have a story of where I almost killed a UMass professor who was a capstone professor of mine. His wife is from Thailand and wanted to try some of this hot pepper jelly. And I was growing the little Thai chili peppers at the time. And I threw those in, not really knowing much what I was doing. And he informed me that it was slightly too hot. So I started looking at milder peppers, ones that I could grow both for the jelly and that I could sell wholesale. Jalapeno peppers, hot red cherries are kind of middle of the Scoville rating. They both have good markets in the wholesale market and retail. So I started using those, tested it on a few people, including myself, and eventually found a recipe that actually tasted really good and other people liked, and I ran with it from there.
Interesting. One other question. Where do you see yourself in 10 or 20 years on the farm?
I hope to continue growing the farm. Working full time, I have to be careful that I don't overextend myself, but I would like to increase my acreage and in that sense, increase the value-added product business, get into more local markets, regional markets with that, and expand the value-added product line. As Skip said, you can get, like, say, $2 for something in a normal market, but if you make it value-added, you can make it something that's $6. So I'd like to grow those aspects of the business, keep growing and keep learning as I grow.
You ever see yourself shifting more to value added and, scaling back on the wholesale crops you grow?
Yeah, certainly. I have thought of that before. It's actually something that my family and I have discussed before. I can certainly see that occurring in the future. And I did see a question come through on the chat of what kind of profit do I make from this moonlighting business? Could I live on it? The honest answer is, in its current state, no, I could not live on it. I'm too small scale at this point, but I do hope to grow it to a point where I could make it even more profitable, make the profit margins and the actual gross income larger so that it could at least be a more supplemental part of my personal income. But I do make a positive profit margin on the product at this point, as I've been establishing myself in another career. I just haven't had the volume. But with the addition of getting into a commercial kitchen, establishing my own kitchen, I have started to build up inventory, which has allowed that that income, that total income, to increase and allow those profit margins to increase even more.
Matt, at the end of the session, I forward out the presentations to the group and homework assignments. Is it okay if we send your slides out to the group?
Certainly, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, if you can send those to me, I'll do that. I'll put my email in the chat so you have that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
And for everyone out there in the audience, I did put down Matt's website and also Skip's website. So I'm sure they would be glad to answer any questions, if you wanted to contact them directly. So again, I'd like to thank again both Skip and Matt. Two different operations, but you can see kind of a common thread there. And it's interesting, to hear their, each one's perspective. So again, we thank you for taking the time